Have you ever felt, at some point, as if a whisper had passed through your soul, awakening something dormant within you? It is with this mystery that we begin our journey today, diving headfirst into the prophetic breath that Mary has sent upon the world, a powerful warning that few dare to fully heed. Imagine hearing, far away, the gentle beating of invisible wings, enveloping your heart in a mist of expectation and hope. Stay with me until the end, because what you will discover now could transform the way you view each message of Medjugorje. In a setting shrouded in ethereal mist. The image of Mary appears almost like a beacon of faint light, guiding our senses beyond the visible. This is the essence of the prophetic breath, a silent yet insistent invitation for us to rediscover inner peace and embrace the 7 unrevealed messages that have echoed since 1981 in the hills of Herzegovina. Have you ever experienced those moments when a simple sigh, a small sign, shakes all the certainties you've built? It is precisely this discreet, yet overwhelming power that we will discuss, as the whispers of the breeze mingle with our thoughts. We are invited to pay attention to the details. Each nuance of the breath of Mary carries a profound motivation, the urgency of a conversion that renews our faith, the call to safeguard peace amidst chaos, the cry for inner healing that we so often ignore. Why is this prophetic breath so vital for us today? What can these unrevealed messages teach us about compassion, prayer, and fasting? Stay with me as we explore every corner of this mystical warning without losing sight of how each word can ignite a flame of transformation within us. Imagine walking the trails of Medjugorje, feeling the sacred ground beneath your feet, while Mary's gentle voice reminds you of the importance of embracing forgiveness and extending love to others. You, who seek signs of hope in a troubled world, will see how the prophetic breath manifests itself in simple and profound actions. In the Eucharist, in the rebuilding of family ties, in the faith renewed day after day. Have you noticed all the signs around you so far? What you discover now may surprise you, revealing dimensions of spirituality that remain hidden to the hasty eye. At this moment, the slow sound of sighs invites you to pause. Take a deep breath and prepare for the revelation of the 7 messages that have remained hidden for so long. Messages that speak of love, unwavering faith, and a renewed sense of community. You will feel the emotion pulsate in every word, understanding that the prophetic breath is not just a distant concept, but a living force, capable of propelling us toward a fuller and more conscious life. And then, as the last echoes of that sigh still linger in the air, our narrative will take on clearer contours, delving deeper into each of these 7 unrevealed messages from Medjugorje. But that's for the next part of this incredible journey, where we'll unveil, in detail and with authority, that breath that echoes throughout the world and that can, without a shadow of a doubt, change your life forever. But before we dive into the first unrevealed message, I want to extend a sincere invitation. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what has touched you most so far. Sharing your experience or opinion not only helps strengthen our community but also guides those who are now seeking hope and transformation. And, if you believe this prophetic breath needs to echo even further, like this video. It shows YouTube that this message is important and allows more people to access this divine warning. Finally, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any details of this series on the 7 messages of Medjugorje. Your participation is what makes this space grow and reach hearts thirsty for faith and mystery. Now, with this energy of communion, let's move forward to unravel Mary's first breath. On June 24, 1981. In the tranquil hills of Medjugorje, 6 young shepherds, Mirjana, Ivanka, Marija, Vika, Jakov, and Ivan reported the first apparition of Mary. In that instant, something changed forever. The gentle breath that blew through the air brought with it a set of messages that revealed a hidden truth, capable of touching weary hearts and awakening a thirst for transformation. Since then, millions of pilgrims from all over the world have immersed themselves in this journey of faith, seeking to understand the scope and impact of this prophetic call. Over the years, witnesses like Father Slavko Barbaric have documented each account, sharing detailed behind-the-scenes accounts that blend prayer, tears, and intense spiritual experiences. From the outset, the messages of Medjugorje gained traction, not only for their mystical aspect, but also for the practical appeal they suggested. Changes in mentality, decisions based on prayer and love for one's neighbor, and urgent inner renewal. The Catholic Church closely followed the phenomenon, establishing investigative commissions that, in 2010, published official reports recognizing the authenticity of several accounts and confirming that, although a definitive assessment is still ongoing, many aspects of this ultrasensory experience align with traditional teachings. Vatican documents and statements by local bishops, such as that of Bishop Pavozanic, reinforce the authority of the apparitions, validating that Mary's prophetic breath is not the product of imagination, but of a continuous revelation, spanning generations. Over the decades, reports of extraordinary healings and radical conversions have emerged, People who once felt lost, directionless, or disillusioned by routine found in Medjugorje not only a renewed faith but also a methodology for rebuilding their lives through small daily gestures of prayer and fasting. The behind-the-scenes stories of these transformations often involve intimate testimonies, recorded in diaries and shared in small circles, where each word pulsates with the hidden truth that spirituality is not a distant concept, but a concrete path of conscious decisions. While the early years were marked by a mix of wonder and skepticism, the consistency of the messages always centered on peace, family reconciliation, and the urgency of personal conversion created a global community united by a common breath of hope. International conferences, retreats, and prayer gatherings transformed the small village in Herzegovina into a meeting place for those seeking answers, fostering a sharing mindset and a deep sense of belonging. And it's not just about emotion. There are photographs, videos, and even academic studies that analyze the behavioral and spiritual changes of pilgrims. Researchers monitoring group dynamics in Medjugorje have identified a domino effect upon receiving a message from Mary. An individual makes a lifelong commitment that positively affects their family circle, community, and, eventually, the world around them. This impact, measured both in personal accounts and in statistics on prayer group participation, proves that we are witnessing something that transcends a simple miracle or an isolated experience. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, exploring how each of these early appearances shaped the nature of the 7 unrevealed messages, revealing layers of meaning that go beyond the visible. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Mary's prophetic breath is much more than a poetic image. It is the very voice of the divine infiltrating our lives, bringing revelations that move like silent yet powerful waves. When we imagine a sigh, we think of a light, almost imperceptible, breeze, and it is precisely in this contrast between subtlety and strength that the richness of this metaphor is revealed. Each gentle exhalation not only enlivens the air around us but carries with it an urgent message, a warning that invites us to stop, reflect, and make decisions that can redefine our journey. Did you know that every sigh carries a warning? Well, within the context of Medjugorje, this breath first appeared to 6 young shepherds as an impulse for transformation, a spark capable of igniting profound changes in the minds and hearts of those who heard it. Imagine yourself, for a moment, in those hills of Herzegovina. The wind blows through your hair, bringing with it an almost imperceptible sound, similar to a distant sigh. It may seem trivial, but for those present, this gentle noise became the soundtrack to an extraordinary event. The prophetic breath symbolizes Mary's presence, reaching each of us directly and intimately, without intermediaries, inviting us to a personal conversion that transcends rituals and formalities. It's as if each sigh says, "Awaken to the hidden truth that can free your soul from the weight of doubts and fears." Over the years, spiritual scholars and religious leaders have compared this breath to a silent messenger, one that doesn't require spotlights or grand dramatic manifestations, but transforms lives discreetly and consistently. Behind the scenes at major conferences and prayer meetings, many declare that they felt this breath at the precise moment they needed guidance for their most crucial decisions. Whether choosing to forgive someone who caused suffering or to strengthen family bonds, the prophetic breath acts as an internal guide, reshaping our mindset and opening spaces in the soul for renewal. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. The metaphor takes on deeper meaning when we realize that the breath is simultaneously gentle and insistent. It doesn't impose itself by force, but returns as many times as necessary until we surrender to its call. Each sigh contains, at its core, an invitation to transformation, transforming fear into courage, uncertainty into faith, and disconnection into communion. This movement from within is the true impact of Mary's breath, for it touches not only our emotions but also our will to act according to the revealed truth. In terms of mindset, the prophetic breath is like a fluid download of divine insights that leads us to rethink our priorities. The decisions we make under its influence arise not from external pressures or personal vanity, but from an inner clarity that unblocks the heart and allows us to see what truly matters. It is at this intersection between the human and the sacred that the breath stands out. It does not nullify our freedom, but rather expands our capacity to choose consciously and lovingly. On a practical level, many pilgrims report experiencing this breath during moments of silent prayer, when their physical surroundings became the setting for a profound connection with the divine. Some describe a slight tingling sensation on the back of their necks, others an inexplicable peace that dispelled anxiety. These bodily signs are not isolated miracles, but manifestations of the breath acting as a catalyst for lasting change. After all, the spirituality of Medjugorje is not limited to spectacular events. It materializes in revelations that are incorporated into daily life, into simple choices, and into routines of fasting and solidarity. The impact of this metaphor also extends to how we understand Mary's mission as an intermediary of active love. Unlike apparitions that speak only of consolation, the prophetic breath spreads a sense of urgency. It is urgent that hearts and minds awaken to the mission of building a world based on compassion and truth. This urgency is not alarmist, but necessary, for it reminds us that each moment is a unique opportunity to manifest the grace that has been offered to us. In conversations between theologians and religious psychologists, the breath has been the subject of studies, exploring the intersection of physiology and spirituality. Some argue that the perception of this breath can be associated with deep breathing patterns during states of meditation, while others emphasize the importance of faith as a lens that amplifies subtle sensations. Whatever the scientific explanation, the fact is that, for those who experience Medjugorje, the prophetic breath stands as a tangible truth, capable of generating internal movements that reverberate in concrete actions throughout the world. Now, with this broader understanding, we can see that Mary's every breath is not limited to the initial encounter in 1981, but continues to pulsate in the present, inviting us to revisit our spiritual journey through new lenses. The hidden truth, once confined to the mountains of Herzegovina, now dwells in the heart of every disciple who accepts the challenge of living according to the unrevealed messages. It is at this point that the prophetic breath becomes an invisible thread connecting past, present, and future, guiding entire communities toward a renewed vision of faith. Comment. This makes sense to me now. I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Imagine for a moment that, upon feeling that gentle breath, you receive a direct call to your heart, a clear and urgent message to turn immediately to God. Before life's doubts and distractions obscure the hidden truth we so desperately desire. This is the essence of Mary's first prophetic message in Medjugorje. Call for immediate conversion that transcends rituals and promises a real, tangible transformation in our mindset and way of life. When the 6 young shepherds had their first encounter with Mary, they didn't just hear beautiful words. They felt deep within their souls the need for radical change. It was as if the prophetic breath had the power to tear away the veil of routine and reveal, behind the scenes of their own lives, how far they had strayed from that primordial connection with the divine. Imagine waking up one day with a heavy heart filled with anguish or emptiness, until, in a sudden instant, the entire inner landscape is reversed upon realizing that the only remedy for that profound dissatisfaction would be to surrender control of small daily decisions to a greater purpose. This impact didn't happen gradually or deliberately. On the contrary, accounts from those who lived through this experience speak of a conversion that happened immediately and even violently, shaking internal structures. One woman, who spent years searching for meaning in therapy and self-help books, described how, upon feeling the prophetic breath for the first time, she had no choice but to abandon old habits, review family priorities, and dedicate hours of her day to prayer and reflection. This change wasn't the result of resignation, but of a decision made with the clarity of someone who discovers a hidden treasure and decides to retrieve it without hesitation. In the small village, the scenes of the apparitions were filled with prayer gatherings that felt more like intimate confidences. People of all ages gathered in small groups, feeling Mary's breath as an impulse to fill every second of their day with acts of faith. Even everyday choices, such as what to eat or how to divide time between work and rest, began to reflect this new conversion-oriented mindset, and this domino effect spread quickly. Those who witnessed the transformation of a neighbor, a coworker, or a family member saw in these revelations concrete proof that, regardless of prior beliefs, everyone could embark on this journey of renewal. The urgency of this message is not alarmist, but loving. It emerges as a message from someone who knows that every second is precious and can be decisive in our encounter with divine purpose. There is a subtle, almost imperceptible intensity that makes us feel, deep within, an immediate desire to correct course and realign our decisions with eternal values. Therefore, even skeptics report how, by allowing themselves to pay attention to that breath, they felt a kind of inner revelation, a glimpse of something greater that transcends any rational explanation. A young businessman, a non-believer in religious manifestations, said that after experiencing the prophetic inspiration at one of the meetings in Medjugorje, he decided to rethink his entire life strategy. He not only changed his work schedule to include moments of silence and prayer, but also reshaped his company's culture, encouraging practices of solidarity among employees. For him, that experience was not only spiritual, but also a lever for social transformation, capable of positively impacting lives and careers. And if you think about your own journey, how many times have you felt a silent call to rethink choices that seemed unshakable? The first message of Medjugorje challenges us to respond with courage, to look within, acknowledge our flaws, and take a decisive step toward God. This is not a simple task, but it is the most rewarding we can undertake, as it opens us to a dimension of true peace, capable of renewing our relationships, our way of dealing with adversity, and even the way we see our life purpose. Over the years, many moving testimonies have emerged from those who overcame addictions, rescued relationships, destroyed by indifference, and found, in forgiveness, the key to rebuilding their own lives. These narratives constitute a living map of the behind-the-scenes story of immediate conversion. With each account, we perceive that the prophetic breath acts as an injection of hope, reinvigorating faith and instigating concrete actions of love. This kind of transformation is not fantasy. It is a recognition that there is an infinite resource of grace within our reach, if we simply respond to the call with a resolute yes. This first message is, in essence, an invitation not to postpone decisions that can define our journey. When Mary whispers through the prophetic breath, she reminds us that the time to act is now, that every thought of repentance, every act of mercy, every moment dedicated to prayer, constitutes a building block in the construction of a life aligned with the divine, and, by understanding this, our mindset expands, allowing us to make a genuine commitment to live with greater love, truth, and purpose. Now, with this flame of conversion lit in our hearts, we are ready to delve into the deeper details of this first immediate call. Comment below. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. When Mary whispers, through her prophetic breath, her second message takes on an urgent and cautious tone. She warns us of the growing risk of spiritual and social conflicts that could disrupt the harmony we have so painstakingly built. These are not just disputes visible in headlines or public debates. They are subtle tensions that erode bonds, fuel prejudices, and fuel divisions behind the scenes within our own communities. This call to protect peace and love is not generic advice, but a precise guideline for each of us to reflect deeply on the decisions that shape our collective mindset. Imagine the scene, in peripheral neighborhoods around the world, where faith often manifests itself in simple ways. Prayer meetings were found to be an opportunity for renewal that escaped the spotlight of large cities. Studies published by universities and research institutions on the dynamics of religious groups in peripheral neighborhoods have identified a surprising pattern. Communities that embraced this prophetic inspiration reported a significant reduction in internal conflicts, an increase in solidarity initiatives, and a radical transformation in the way they deal with cultural and socioeconomic differences. This data, collected by anthropologists and sociologists of religion, reinforces the authority of Mary's message, showing that its impact is not restricted to the spiritual realm but reverberates concretely throughout the social fabric. At the heart of this message lies a hidden truth that needs to be uncovered. Peace and love are not passive states, but active achievements that demand vigilance, dialogue, and a willingness to embrace others. When we allow the prophetic breath to permeate our daily decisions, we realize that true peace does not mean the absence of disagreements, but the ability to transform them into bridges of understanding. It is in this movement of acceptance that the community finds strength to face challenges, as a compassion-driven mindset becomes an antidote to old grudges and animosities disguised as good intentions. In moving accounts gathered from prayer groups on the outskirts of Sarajevo and in the favelas of Salvador, believers describe how, after gathering to pray and meditate on Mary's words, they noticed practical changes in their relationships. Neighbors who were once at odds began to share what little they had. Young people involved in gang fights rediscovered the value of life, and floods of misunderstandings were transformed into opportunities for reconciliation. These testimonies not only warmed the heart but demonstrate the tangible impact of a message that, when put into practice, generates waves of transformation. By understanding this social dimension of the apparition, our journey of faith takes on a broader meaning. We are not mere spectators of a spiritual phenomenon, but protagonists of a silent revolution, where every act of kindness contributes to rebuilding structures weakened by inequality and fear. The hidden truth that Mary reveals is not confined to spectacular miracles, but is expressed in the daily lives of those who choose to act with love, even when it is easier to harbor resentment. This generous behavior, guided by the prophetic breath, creates an impact that transcends borders, reaching people who would never imagine finding reasons for hope. In the peripheries, where routine often imposes a fast and stressful pace, the message of protecting peace emerged as an invitation to slow down and cultivate empathy. Studies conducted by community psychologists observed that participants in prayer circles guided by the Medjugorje revelations showed high levels of emotional resilience and the ability to resolve conflicts through dialogue. These indicators, published in specialized reports, lend credibility to a proposal that blends spirituality and social well-being, inviting each of us to rethink how we relate to others. At the same time, this call for peace does not ignore the internal struggles we wage against pride, selfishness, and fear. Mary's second message focuses on this intimate battle, teaching that harmony begins within us, by caring for our own thoughts and feelings. When we allow the prophetic breath to penetrate our innermost being, we are challenged to abandon defensive attitudes and make room for attentive listening. It is as if each of Mary's breaths says, "Protect your heart from the poison of discord, for it is within it that the flame of true love is born." In private conversations with religious leaders and scholars of mystical phenomena, a consensus emerges that this message of peace and love has a universal character, capable of transcending beliefs and cultures. The subtlety of the prophetic breath ensures that it reaches both the rational mind and the soul thirsting for meaning, creating a bridge between science, spirituality, and social action. When we look at the peripheries that have embraced these ideas, we see how the collective is transformed. Mutual aid projects emerge, discussion groups to resolve family conflicts, and community campaigns that bring food and support to those most in need, and so, without grand gestures, but with firm decisions. The mindset shaped by Mary's breath produces lasting effects. People who once lived isolated in bubbles of distrust now share experiences, learn to forgive, and build a path of hope together. This journey of transformation isn't instantaneous, but happens with each prayer meeting, with each moment of silence in which we allow the prophetic breath to renew our convictions. In this interweaving of stories and research, we discover that the message of protection, peace, and love is an invitation to reinvent our way of existing in the world. It calls us to a delicate work of collective construction, where each brick is made of compassion and each space is filled with gestures of solidarity. And it is by experiencing this reality, whether in the hallways of a community school or in conversations around a simple table, that we perceive the true power of Mary's prophetic breath. Now, with this understanding, we're ready to dive deeper into the next chapters of this ongoing revelation, where every detail uncovered connects to a larger story of love and faith. Comment below, I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Imagine that, as you feel Mary's gentle breath, a wave of compassion begins to course through your heart, revealing a hidden truth about the need for inner healing and liberation. It's as if every cell of your being awakens to recognize old wounds that, for too long, have been buried under layers of hurt, resentment, and fear. The third prophetic message of Medjugorje is not just an invitation to transformation, but a didactic call that teaches us, step by step, the art of forgiveness and reconciliation, to essential keys to unlocking the freedom God intended for us. When we speak of inner healing, we are referring to a conscious process of looking within, identifying emotional scars, and courageously exposing these wounds to the light of prayer and repentance. In many behind-the-scenes accounts of the apparitions, we see how prayer groups organized reconciliation workshops, where witnesses shared their most painful stories, finding a safe space to express their pain and receive support. This dynamic of sharing, accompanied by Mary's prophetic inspiration, triggered a true, silent revolution in the mindset of those who participated, demonstrating that freeing oneself from old grudges is crucial to experiencing the promised peace. There's something profoundly practical about this call to inner healing. It encourages us to make concrete decisions, such as writing letters of forgiveness, seeking a hug from someone we've hurt, or even offering a sincere "I'm sorry" to those who have hurt us. The message is clear. Forgiveness is not a passive gesture, but an act of courage that requires an active stance, willing to rebuild relationships that seemed irreparably destroyed. By doing so, we realize the positive impact not only on our emotions but also on our daily choices, influencing how we relate to one another at work, in our families, and in our communities. In one of the most moving testimonies, a woman who had lived years trapped in family resentment described how a prophetic breath reached her just as she was praying. Alone in her room, anguished by memories of betrayal and disappointment, suddenly, she felt an inexplicable peace, followed by an inner voice telling her, "Free your heart. It's time for reconciliation." That experience led her not only to seek out the sister she hadn't spoken to in over a decade, but also to begin a process of reconciliation that healed not only old wounds but also had a profound impact on the entire family structure, changing mindsets and attitudes from generation to generation. The journey of inner healing, guided by the prophetic breath, passes through complex terrain where feelings of guilt and shame can arise. This is why Mary presents reconciliation as an essential step, showing that forgiveness encompasses not only the act of forgiving, but also asking for forgiveness when we are responsible for others' hurts. This revelation invites a true metamorphosis of the ego, encouraging us to abandon proud defenses and embrace a posture of humility and gratitude, recognizing that we are all vulnerable and dependent on divine grace. From a practical perspective, communities impacted by this message have created healing circles, where each participant commits to sharing a story of pain and then offering forgiveness to another person. This method, documented in pastoral theology studies, has proven extremely effective in generating inner transformation and strengthening community bonds. The act of listening to another's pain and responding with compassion accelerates the process of liberation, as it places us at the heart of a dynamic of empathy and solidarity. In addition to healing circles, many people have begun incorporating prayer habits focused on reconciliation into their routines, such as the mystical practice of the inner sign of the cross. At the beginning of the day, one makes a brief gesture of the cross over one's heart, accompanied by a prayer asking Mary to breathe upon one's soul the grace to forgive and be forgiven. This simple, yet intentional ritual serves as a daily reminder of our decisions to live in the freedom of forgiveness, shaping our mindset and opening space for new emotional revelations. Behind the scenes of these practices, stories of true transformations emerge. People who were previously immobilized by the weight of guilt began to live with a renewed sense of purpose, feeling as if an old burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Some of them found not only peace, but also the strength to undertake social projects, helping others who, like them, faced deep wounds. This cycle of healing had a visible impact on entire neighborhoods, where the climate of reconciliation replaced old rivalries and encouraged initiatives such as support groups for victims of domestic violence, offering not only material support, but also emotional space to share the journey of liberation. The quality of this inner healing process lies in the combination of spiritual elements and community support. This is not an isolated therapy, but a confluence of prayer, sharing, and mutual support, all touched by the subtle presence of the prophetic breath. It is an invitation to understand that, often, what we consider irreversible failures in our history can be reinterpreted, received by divine mercy, and transformed into a source of strength and inspiration for new chapters in life. By embracing this message of liberation, we learn that true freedom only manifests when we leave behind the chains of the past. It's a process that requires time and a willingness to revisit painful memories, but it leads us to an experience of profound renewal, allowing the light of hidden truth to shine in our hearts with renewed intensity. Inner healing, guided by Mary's prophetic breath, inaugurates a mindset of hope, demonstrating that each decision to forgive and reconcile is a step toward an increasingly mature and transformative journey of faith. Now, with this clarity about the power of forgiveness and reconciliation in our lives, we move forward, inspired by these revelations that guide us through previously unexplored paths. Comment below, this makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Imagine that every time you sit down to pray, even for just 3 minutes a day, you erect an invisible shield around your heart, protecting yourself from doubts, anxieties, and the silent attacks that often overwhelm us without us realizing it. Mary's fourth prophetic message in Medjugorje emphasizes precisely this. Prayer and fasting are not distant or esoteric practices, but practical tools of transformation that can redefine your mindset and illuminate hidden truth in every decision you make throughout your daily life. It is in the simplicity of these gestures, a daily moment of recollection and a brief abstinence from comfort, that the power of a spiritual shield is revealed, capable of strengthening us to face life's setbacks. Behind the scenes of the faith journeys in Medjugorje, groups of pilgrims share how they learned to incorporate prayer and fasting into their daily lives without it becoming a burden. They recount rituals that begin in the morning, upon awakening, setting aside 3 minutes for a brief prayer of gratitude, giving thanks for the new chance to live according to the revelations received. This simple habit, repeated consistently, functions as an inner check-in, a moment of alignment between mind and heart, where one consciously decides to love more and fear less. This quick tip, 3 minutes a day, that can stir your heart, has become almost a mantra for those who want to experience the real impact of these practices without being burdened by the guilt of not doing enough. Fasting, far from being a painful penance, is presented as an exercise in strategic renunciation, a breaking of habitual patterns that keep us trapped in superficial comforts. Rather than proposing long periods of abstinence, Mary's message suggests starting with small sacrifices, giving up a food you consume easily, giving up that sweet treat after lunch, or even abstaining from social media for a few hours a day. These acts, however insignificant, generate renewed awareness of our behavioral patterns, revealing automatic patterns that had gone unnoticed. By observing our desires more clearly, we begin to make decisions more aligned with divine purpose, reinforcing the mindset that we are more than simply consumers of fleeting experiences. It's fascinating to realize that, by combining prayer and fasting, we create a virtuous cycle of transformation. Prayer prepares the inner terrain, opening doors for hidden truth to reach us, while fasting clears away distractions, allowing each revelation to be assimilated more deeply. In moving accounts, countless people report feeling warmth in their chest, a kind of joyful pulse that emerged after combining these two exercises, signaling that something was changing within them, a harbinger of liberation from the bonds of fear and selfishness. This process of inner renewal doesn't happen all at once, but is accomplished step by step, like a fluid journey of faith and courage. In community settings, many have created prayer and fasting circles in the outskirts and villages where they live, taking advantage of the community to share personal revelations and support each other in moments of weakness. Behind the scenes at these meetings, the atmosphere is filled with solidarity, the stories of those who resisted the temptation of a coffee or the urge to check their cell phone become a cause for celebration, encouraging each person to persist. In their own discipline, these gatherings, which blend sincere sharing and practical guidance, reinforce the united body mentality, demonstrating that individual impact reverberates throughout the community and multiplies the reach of messages. The persuasive approach of this practice lies in the fact that it doesn't require major sacrifices. On the contrary, Maria reinforces the idea that small daily sacrifices, guided by intentional prayer, can generate unexpected revelations about our inner patterns. Previously mechanical decisions, like choosing what to eat or how to spend a break at work, become opportunities to hear the prophetic breath. This method, tested by thousands of pilgrims, proves that we don't need long retreats or special training to experience profound changes. All it takes is the willingness to begin a simple but ongoing routine. For those seeking greater clarity on their faith journey, incorporating this dynamic is an invitation to see everyday life as a testing ground and a source of revelation. Each morning, by dedicating 3 minutes to dialogue with the divine, you strengthen your inner shield, feeling more resilient to the day's uncertainties. Each time you choose to fast from a distraction or a food, you cleanse the lens through which you see the world, allowing the light of Medjugorje's unrevealed messages to shine more brightly in your life. It is in this fusion of prayer and fasting that the art of resisting emotional exhaustion is revealed, of cultivating an active peace that is reflected in wise decisions and concrete gestures of love. By experiencing this process, we realize that it is not just spiritual care, but a continuous training for the soul, launching us on a path of growth and depth. And, as we continue to advance, we understand that this shield is not erected once, but renewed daily, little by little, breath by breath. Comment here. I'm on this journey too now. I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Think of the Eucharist as the beating heart of the entire spiritual journey proposed by Mary in Medjugorje, a meeting point between the prophetic breath and the real presence of Christ. When the bread is consecrated, it is not just a symbol. It is the living bridge that connects us directly to the source of grace, offering us the possibility of experiencing a transformation so profound that it changes our mindset and guides our daily decisions. It is as if, with each Eucharistic sharing, Mary's gentle breath gains new strength, translating into a resurgence of faith and an inner impulse that escapes rational explanation, revealing a hidden truth that transcends the visible. Behind the scenes at the Medjugorje gatherings, many pilgrims report moments when, after receiving communion, they felt a warming sensation in their hearts, as if a breeze of divine love swept away the doubts accumulated throughout their lives. This impact is not only emotional, but also practical. Previously timid decisions, such as resuming dialogue with a distant relative or taking on volunteer service in the community, suddenly make sense, driven by renewed conviction. It is in this intertwining of mystery and reality that the Eucharist reveals its power as a spiritual shield, reinforcing within us the conviction that we are sustained by a living presence, capable of guiding us and restoring us to emotional exhaustion. Historically, Medjugorje has accumulated accounts of miracles attributed to the Eucharistic sacrament, small signs that point to the greatness of grace at work in the daily lives of the faithful. Some mention unexpected healings during moments of adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, reports of chronic pain that dissipated after a full night of Eucharistic vigil, or even cases of photographs of the monstrance revealing unusual luminosity. These testimonies, documented by the retreat organizers themselves and by scholars of mystical theology, serve as clues to a hidden treasure, the Eucharist, as a source of supernatural energy, which permeates our journey of faith and invites us to renew our inner life. The hidden truth that unfolds behind this practice, however, goes beyond extraordinary manifestations. The simple act of reverently approaching and sharing the body of Christ creates a spiritual intimacy that strengthens the courage to face the challenges of daily life. In sacred contact, we realize that the Eucharist nourishes not only the body but also the soul, imprinting within us a sacramental mark that echoes in all spheres of existence, in work, in relationships, in the small choices that define our character. It is there that Mary's prophetic breath finds fertile ground to germinate fruits of peace and continual renewal. In studies on the psychology of religion, researchers have observed that Eucharistic devotional practice can generate an effective internal coherence, harmoniously uniting belief and behavior. Those who commit to regularly attending Eucharistic Mass demonstrate greater resilience in the face of crises, report greater meaning in their choices, and reveal a willingness to serve others more generously. These data, drawn from research in faith communities, support the authority of Mary's message, demonstrating that the Eucharist is not a simple tradition, but a concrete resource for spiritual and social strengthening. Behind the scenes of the celebrations in Medjugorje, priests who accompany the pilgrimages report instances in which young non-believers rediscovered the sense of the divine by contemplating the Blessed Sacrament. In ceremonies of prolonged adoration, many confess to experiencing sudden insights, revelations about their life's purpose, and spiritual guidance that had previously remained veiled. It is as if the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, multiplied by Mary's prophetic breath, formed a direct channel for an experience of transformative grace, capable of restructuring our mindset toward a life rooted in love and truth. Furthermore, there are historical curiosities that enrich this connection between Medjugorje and the Eucharist. In 1983, for example, a group of pilgrims witnessed a phenomenon in which the host, displayed in an exhibition, emanated an unusual glow, recorded in several photographs. Although these records have not received a definitive ruling from the Church, they circulate within the devotional background as evidence that the Eucharist acts in mysterious ways on that blessed ground. These accounts fuel the imagination of the faithful, but also reinforce the notion that faith goes hand in hand with inquiry and the search for deeper understandings. When we reflect on the importance of this sacrament within the proposal of the 7 unrevealed messages, we note that the Eucharist serves as the matrix for all the practices suggested by Mary: immediate conversion, active peace, inner healing, prayer, and fasting. Find in communion a point of convergence, a moment of with the divine that legitimizes and strengthens every decision of faith. It is the impact and transformation that are revealed both in the personal encounter with Christ and in the communal dimension. For when we receive communion, we become one body, a single community united by the same prophetic breath that echoes from the hills of Herzegovina, and it is in this breadth of meaning that we realize that the Eucharist is not an isolated ritual, but the core of an ongoing journey of renewal. Each Mass celebrated in tune with the prophetic breath strengthens bonds of fraternity, fuels the flame of hope, and projects revelations on how to live with integrity and commitment. By deepening this understanding, we become not just consumers of grace, but agents of transformation, capable of radiating the love we receive at the altar around us. Now, with this overview of the power and relevance of the Eucharist in our journey, we are ready to explore the next layers of prophetic wisdom, which unfold into messages that touch our being even more deeply. Comment below: "This makes sense to me." Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Imagine that, upon feeling the prophetic breath, our hearts are called not only to a personal conversion, but to create invisible bridges that rebuild family structures shaken by routine, lack of dialogue, and the silent wounds that accumulate within the walls of the home. Mary's 6th message in Medjugorje emerges as a passionate invitation to rebuild the family in faith, a proposal for transformation that aims to restore broken bonds and redefine decisions that often prioritized ego over love. It is on this intimate journey, experienced behind the scenes in so many homes around the world, that a hidden truth is revealed. Only Mary's breath has the necessary strength to inspire profound reconciliations and generate a lasting impact on family dynamics. In various regions, from inconspicuous villages to large metropolises, moving stories have emerged of entire families who, feeling the urgency of the prophetic breath, decided to place prayer at the center of their domestic routine. No complex ritual is necessary. Simply gather parents, children, and grandparents for a daily moment of prayer, where each person shares their desires and sins without fear of judgment. This simple gesture, repeated consistently, acts as spiritual cement, cementing the collective mindset in the greater purpose of love and forgiveness. Families living on the brink of collapse, victims of disputes over inheritances, long-held grievances, or power struggles, found, in this process, an opportunity to rewrite their stories based on respect and renewed faith. A particularly touching example occurred in a small community in rural Croatia. A father and daughter had lost contact after years of disagreements caused by unjust accusations and hidden resentments. The desperate mother sought refuge in Medjugorje, taking with her the prayer journal where she recorded her supplications and fears. During that retreat, she experienced the prophetic inspiration as an urgent call to gather the family around a prayer table. Upon her return, she organized weekly meetings to read Mary's messages, alternating moments of silence, confession, and open dialogue. Within a few weeks, the father and daughter met in tears, exchanging forgiveness and sealing a pact of reconciliation that enabled not only the rétablissement of coexistence, but the blossoming of a partnership of faith. Today, this couple runs a shelter for families in crisis, inspiring other homes to embrace the same journey of healing. Behind the scenes of this rebuilding process, it's fascinating to observe how everyday decisions, the choice to set aside 5 minutes a day to listen to others, the willingness to let go of pride, to ask for forgiveness, add up and generate an invisible yet powerful impact. Mary's message teaches that faith isn't manifested only in grand public displays, but in the tenacity of those who decide, each morning, to love instead of accuse, to understand instead of criticize. This shift in mindset, fueled by the prophetic breath, creates an atmosphere of trust and mutual respect, where each family member feels valued and safe to share their anguish without fear of reprimand. Furthermore, sociology of religion studies applied to communities that have adopted this practice reveal impressive statistics. Families that incorporate daily, collective prayers have higher rates of effective communication, resolve conflicts more quickly, and demonstrate greater resilience in the face of financial and emotional crises. These data, compiled in academic reports, corroborate the authority of the message, showing that rebuilding the family through faith is not a romantic abstraction, but a proven path to strengthening bonds and consolidating a culture of love. In every transformed home, surprising revelations emerge about the mechanics of reconciliation. The simple act of listening to the prophetic breath allows unspoken words to be acknowledged and pent up feelings to find a channel of expression. Parents who had never reconciled past betrayals discover that forgiveness opens the door to a markedly lighter coexistence. Children who have been estranged because of generational conflicts feel a willingness to return, touched by the authenticity and vulnerability of adults who acknowledge mistakes. In this context, the impact goes beyond the walls of the home, extending to friendships, neighborhoods, and even schools, where family reconstruction inspires projects for more harmonious coexistence. The beauty of this process lies in the naturalness with which the prophetic breath infiltrates daily relationships. There is no imposition of rigid dogmas nor the need for grand public displays. The invitation is for each family to discover in the simplest details, a sincere apology, a lingering hug, an uninterrupted listening session, the possibility of re-establishing connections that seemed lost. It is a call to vulnerability, too, a hidden truth that only reveals itself when we let go of our defenses and allow ourselves to experience the power of restorative love. During this journey, many families recount moments of profound joy and relief. Stories of siblings who, after decades, visited their grandfather's tomb and united in prayer. Of couples who overcame long-standing betrayals only by recognizing, together, that Mary's prophetic breath was calling them to a new covenant based on mercy. These moving stories, shared in the testimony meetings, become fuel for those watching from the outside, inspiring a mindset of hope and courage to make decisions that previously seemed impossible. And it is precisely there that we perceive the transformative dimension of this message. By rebuilding the family in faith, we not only restore affections, but also generate a movement of renewal that spans generations. Today's children become adults with a solid foundation of love and forgiveness, able to build, in turn, new homes founded on the same principles. Thus, Mary's prophetic breath finds an echo in a legacy that propagates through time, redefining the notion of community and demonstrating that faith can be an agent of social change, capable of healing historical wounds and rescuing abandoned dreams. Now, with this insight into restoring family ties through faith and prophetic inspiration, we move forward to unravel the next layers of this ongoing revelation, which still holds many secrets for those willing to dive headfirst into this journey. Comment below. I'm on this journey too. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. When we allow Mary's prophetic breath to invade our innermost being, we are led to glimpse something far beyond our everyday concerns, a prophetic vision of a future regenerated by grace, in which all humanity reconnects with the divine purpose of love and fraternity. It is as if, amidst the scenes of a grand spiritual production, we receive fragments of a cosmic script that reveals to us not only our individual destiny, but also the collective call to participate in a journey of global transformation. This seventh message of Medjugorje inspires us to adopt a mindset of active hope, where every decision made in favor of others contributes to the construction of a more just, supportive, and sustainable world. Even though adversities seem inequalities, environmental crisis, the prophetic breath whispers that nothing is lost when we surrender our depths to the divine breath. The hidden truth manifests itself in the sense that the regeneration of the planet and human societies depends on a profound shift in mindset, capable of elevating our gaze beyond superficial differences and discovering the intrinsic value of each life. In this context, we are invited to exercise compassion as a guiding principle, seeing each act of kindness as a fundamental piece in the great work of reconstruction. It is in the soil plowed by forgiveness, reconciliation, and generosity that the world begins to flourish anew, transforming scars into gardens of hope. In stories spanning urban outskirts, rural communities, and even academic centers, we witness groups who have taken on the mission of being heralds of this prophetic hope. Inspired by Mary's breath, they have developed initiatives in inclusive education, community agroecology, and support for migrants, proving that small local decisions can generate a global impact. These projects, documented by social impact researchers, have revealed that when hearts unite around values of justice and solidarity, innovative solutions to age-old problems emerge. Community gardens that feed entire families, reading circles that promote intergenerational dialogue, and volunteer networks that support those most in need. The transformation envisioned is not utopian, but arises from concrete choices. With every act of caring for the planet, recycling, conserving water, choosing sustainable products, we are responding to Mary's message of respecting creation as an expression of divine love. At the same time, by deciding to include the most vulnerable in our prayers and projects, We act as living witnesses to this prophetic breath, bringing hope to the peripheries of the human heart. It is in this fusion of spirituality and social action that regeneration becomes palpable, demonstrating that faith and service walk hand in hand, nourishing each other and bearing fruits of compassion. Behind the scenes of this vision include interfaith meetings where leaders from different traditions gather to discern paths to peace, based on the principles revealed by the messages of Medjugorje. In these spaces, the hidden truth about human unity resurfaces as the basis for harmonious coexistence. Social psychologists and theologians document these initiatives as examples of large-scale reconciliation, pointing out that when we open ourselves to the gentle voice of the prophetic breath, we are able to overcome cultural and ideological barriers, finding common ground of values that benefits all of society. It's striking to note how, by adopting this perspective of regenerative hope, our mindset begins to operate in long-term decisions, guided by the common good rather than immediate interests. We begin to invest not only in successful personal projects, but in causes that strengthen human dignity in its entirety. This shift in priorities reflects the profound impact of the prophetic breath, as we become aware of our role as co-creators of a brighter future. Our daily actions from work to leisure take on a broader and more meaningful meaning. In practice, many believers report feeling an inner calling to get involved in volunteer initiatives, whether in children's shelters, hospitals, or psychological support centers. This engagement, motivated by the understanding that we are all part of the same global family, translates into real changes in the quality of life for thousands of people. Positive psychology studies show that those who participate in acts of volunteer service experience greater emotional well-being, corroborating the proposition that the regeneration of the world depends on hearts willing to serve. This is a clear testament to how prophetic hope translates into effective action, generating a virtuous cycle of love and healing for all humanity. The journey of hope also calls us to revisit our relationship with time and natural resources, recognizing that every second is an opportunity to express care and respect. When we consider decisions like reducing plastic consumption, supporting renewable energy, or promoting environmental education, we are responding to Mary's silent invitation to become responsible stewards of creation. This expanded perspective, which transcends the individual and encompasses future generations, represents the true greatness of this message. It makes us realize that our freedom is not only personal, but collective, intertwined with the fate of the planet itself. And, as we emerge from this deep dive into the final prophetic message, we are moved to contemplate an essential question: how can we be heralds of this hope? It is an invitation to continuous reflection, for each of us carries a part of this divine breath and can translate it into gestures that echo throughout the world. The great revelation is that we don't need to wait for great signs or spectacular miracles. We simply need to make room for this gentle wind to transform our perceptions, forcing us to make decisions guided by faith, love, and social responsibility. Comment: this makes sense to me now. I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Imagine Mary's prophetic breath not just as a phenomenon confined to the hills of Herzegovina, but as a living force that crosses continents, crosses languages, and touches hearts in the four corners of the world. Behind the scenes of this global journey, devotees from various countries share stories that highlight the profound transformation that occurs when we allow this breath to reach every fiber of our being. In a rural community in Italy, a woman with a broken voice describes how, during a simple prayer vigil, she felt a gentle shiver on the back of her neck, accompanied by an insight that impelled her to reconcile with her son, estranged for years. "It was as if Mary's wind blew through my room," she says, "and I understood that there was nothing more important than restoring our bonds." This revelation of family healing, occurring amidst the sunset in the Tuscan vineyards, echoes the same principles of reconciliation and forgiveness we saw in the early testimonies of Medjugorje, proving that the hidden truth of these messages knows no boundaries. Further afield, in the Philippines, young university students participating in a Bible study group recount an experience as simple as it was impactful. While meditating on Mary's words, they felt an unexpected breeze descending through the narrow chapel corridors. For them, this breeze represented a call to social responsibility, leading them to organize food drives for needy communities. One of them describes, "I realized that my decisions needed to reflect the love we receive. It changed my mindset about what it means to serve." This initiative, which emerged almost as an automatic reflex, demonstrates the direct impact that prophetic inspiration has on how we approach our daily choices, transforming individual intentions into far-reaching community actions. On the other side of the planet, in Nigeria, a pastor of a small evangelical church tells how he saw his congregation grow after adopting fasting and prayer practices inspired by the messages of Medjugorje. He reports having received, during a night of vigil, a clear perception that the Eucharist and fraternal communion should go hand in hand. "While we were praying, I felt a breath that said, 'Unite in prayer and sharing, and you will see the fruits of reconciliation.' The following month, Families previously in conflict began to gather in smaller groups, sharing food and prayers, and the hostile environment transformed into an atmosphere of welcome. This account reinforces the spiritual shield that Mary offers, proving that the prophetic breath acts not only within each individual, but in the collective dynamics that build the social fabric. In a North American city in the United States, young professionals describe how a prophetic breath helped them cope with the anxiety and pressures of everyday corporate life. During a weekend retreat hosted by a local parish, some participants felt a gentle draft of air moving through the prayer room, just before experiencing a moment of clarity that led them to reevaluate their priorities. "I realized I was living on autopilot, always chasing external goals," says one of them. "When I felt that breath, I understood I needed to redirect my decisions towards something more meaningful." Back at work, mentoring and moral support projects for colleagues emerged, demonstrating how internal transformation can translate into structural changes within organizations and professional environments. Meanwhile, in Brazil, underprivileged communities on the outskirts of São Paulo report feeling the presence of a prophetic breath during prayer meetings on the roof of a simple house. One community leader recalls, "I've never seen such unity as that day. It was as if the wind blew among us, bringing a sense of urgency to act on behalf of the most vulnerable." From this experience, spiritual education initiatives for children were born, reinforcing the idea that each breath of Mary carries a specific calling. In the Brazilian case, that of transforming social realities marked by inequality through practical love and active faith. In a remote Indian village, a group of pilgrims, after hours of choral singing in a converted temple, describe a moment of pause when a collective sigh seemed to pierce the hot, humid air. For them, this breath represented an invitation to interreligious reconciliation, sparking encounters between Christians, Hindus, and Muslims to discuss shared values of compassion and service. This example illustrates how the prophetic breath reveals itself as an agent of peace that transcends cultural and religious differences, shaping a mindset of respect and cooperation that can influence dialogue decisions in complex contexts. These varied testimonies, coming from such distant corners, attest to the interconnected nature of Mary's breath, demonstrating that her revelations are not limited to one audience or geographic region. It is a phenomenon that unfolds across multiple realities, always adapting to the changing circumstances of each culture, yet maintaining its essence, the unwavering invitation to conversion, communion, healing, prayer, forgiveness, the protection of peace, the rebuilding of homes, and the hope of a renewed world. With each account, we realize that this divine punctuation, this simple sigh weaves a web of experiences that reinforce the global impact of Medjugorje's messages, inviting us to cherish each breath as a reminder that we are not alone on our spiritual journey. By bringing together these diverse voices, we understand that the transformative power of the prophetic breath is amplified when we share our experiences, fueling a stream of revelations that nourishes the faith of millions. It's as if each testimony were a fragment of a larger mosaic, where every color and shape revealed the beauty of a divine plan that expands without limits. In this sense, the notion that we are all co-responsible for spreading this message is reinforced. Our responsibility is not limited to perceiving the breath, but to sharing it, keeping alive the flame of hope and faith. Comment here. I'm on this journey to now, I want to delve even deeper into this transformative conclusion, bringing together in a single sentence the power of the 7 messages that have permeated every corner of our lives, from the urgent call to conversion, through the incessant search for peace and love, achieving inner healing and liberation, raising ourselves with prayer and fasting as a shield, sustaining us in the living presence of the Eucharist, repairing family bonds in faith, and igniting the flame of hope for the future of humanity. This is the prophetic breath of Mary that infiltrates every decision, shaping a journey of transformation and constant revelation. As we speak these words, we feel the echo of each breath in our depths, as if a gentle yet irresistible wind were swaying the curtains of our hearts, inviting us to remain attentive to the invisible, to that hidden truth that only reveals itself to those who remain in tune with the divine breath. Then the scene unfolds in absolute silence. There is no human voice, only the prolonged sound of a sigh that slowly permeates the space, filling it with an aura of mystery and expectation, preparing the ground for what is yet to come. It's as if the entire world holds its breath, awaiting Mary's next breath that will resume the narrative of hope and transformation. If you felt this breath touching your heart, leave a comment with which of the messages resonated most with you and why. Like this video to spread this message of hope, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next prophetic revelations. And so, those who were with me until my last breath realized how much these revelations can transform our way of life. If you've made it this far, leave a comment saying I'm with you until the end, to let me know we're together on this journey of faith and discovery. If this content brought clarity and inspiration to your heart, leave a like. It helps strengthen our connection and shows that this prophetic breath is reaching those who need it most. And, to continue exploring these profound messages, There's a video here that complements everything we've seen today. Click and follow me there to delve even deeper into the hidden truths that Mary breathed into the world. See you soon.